The Steve Lobby Agency presents the Christian Publishing Show, a podcast for writers who want to advance Christ's kingdom using the written word. Here's your host, Thomas Umstattd Jr.
The heart of independent publishing is the ebook. And while print-on-demand paper books are nice to sell, most indie careers are defined, their success is defined by their ebook sales. So how do you publish an ebook, and how do you avoid the mistakes that a lot of authors make? Our guest today founded Smashwords back in 2008, in the early days of ebooks. And he founded it to make ebook publishing fast, free, and easy for writers to self-publish books. And today they are the world's largest distributor of indie books, and they have published and distributed over 500,000 ebooks. So Mark Croker, welcome to the Christian Publishing Show.
Thanks, Thomas. It's awesome to be here.
So are ebooks still a thing? Aren't they like totally 2015? It's 2020 now.
It's 2020. Ebooks are still a thing, but we've certainly seen ebooks plateau in terms of sales growth for most authors.
Although that's actually a misnomer. We were just digging into the numbers on this on my other podcast on novel marketing. So NPD Group, and if you listen to the traditional publishers, they will report that their sales are flat or down. But the total market sales are actually up because the growth is coming to the ebook, the indies.
I can see that total market sales are up, but for the average author experience, authors that were publishing 5-6 years ago are that I speak with are really struggling to achieve the same sales that they were just a few years ago.
That makes sense because there's so many more authors entering the market. So while there was 10 people in your sub-genre writing books, now there's 20 in your sub-genre, and the pie is being sliced into even more slices. So even though the pie as a whole is getting bigger, you have to fight harder for your slice to grow.
Definitely. And the indie author participants in this industry are getting smarter and smarter, so the competition's increasing.
Exactly. So is ebook publishing different at all for Christian authors, or is it more or less the same regardless of what kind of book you're writing?
You know, from my perspective, I think it's pretty much the same. Christian authors are facing a lot of the same challenges that any other author is facing. You're facing a glut of high-quality, low-cost ebooks out there in the marketplace. You're facing incredible confusion in terms of the number of publishing options out there and the number of so-called experts giving advice. Often the advice is incompatible with the advice you're getting from other people. It's a confusing time, especially if you're a first-time author. If you're just now contemplating self-publishing, it's pretty difficult to get started and know what your right path should be.
Yeah, and you're talking about choices and decisions that authors have to make. One of the biggest decisions that every author has to make when they are publishing their first ebook is to go wide or to go exclusive with Amazon. And I know you have very strong opinions about this. So walk us through whether or not, from your perspective, authors should go wide or whether they should go exclusive with Amazon's KDP Select program.
Okay, so first, let me preface this for listeners that may not know me or are not familiar with Smashwords. We are an ebook distributor, and we also operate an ebook retailer at smashwords.com. So you might say that we're a competitor to Amazon, though I can tell you that when I started Smashwords, the idea was not to be a competitor to Amazon. It was to be a supplier to Amazon and every other retailer. Back in December 2011, when Amazon first announced KDP Select, which is their exclusive program requiring at least minimum 3 months of exclusivity, I warned authors that this was not a good change for the industry, that it was potentially dangerous, that by removing their books from other retailers and making their books exclusive to Amazon, they were going to starve the other retailers of the critical books and inventory and customers that they needed to survive. And I also warned authors that they risked becoming tenant farmers to Amazon, tilling Amazon soil, if they were to make all their books exclusive to Amazon. And I warned authors about the Irish potato famine, that authors should study up on that. So my warnings on day one of KDP Select were fairly dire. And I'm sorry to say that just about everything that I predicted came true and worse. it's been really difficult to see what's happened to the industry and to a lot of authors that have been sucked into this. If you look back 10, 12 years ago, the big challenge that self-published authors faced was a lack of distribution, lack of availability in major bookstores. Prior to the launch of ebooks, it was pretty close to impossible to become a successful self-published author because all your sales were in print. And if you wanted to sell books in print, you really needed to be in bookstores back then. So no wonder that most self-published authors in print prior to a decade ago failed. And no wonder there was such a stigma associated with self-publishing, that self-publishing was the route for failed authors. Ebooks changed all that and opened up new opportunities. But I fear that what we've seen happen now is that indie authors, self-published authors, have traded one gatekeeper for another.
Yeah, because traditionally the kind of pros and cons are, the pro of going exclusive to Amazon is that you're making more money and you have access to more of Amazon's kind of exclusive marketing techniques. You can make your book free. You get a higher margin on the books that you sell at certain price points. But the downside is that Amazon has full control over all of your money. All of your money is coming from Amazon. And so this is kind of the big decision is, how much do I trust Amazon? Because it is a lot more money potentially that they're making if they're exclusive with Amazon. Let's not beat around that bush. But if you get on the bad side of Amazon and they kick you to the curb, suddenly that big number turns into a zero. And that's so, like, people like Joanna Penn are very famous for going wide, right? Sure, her books are available everywhere, whereas other authors like Chris Fox are exclusive to Amazon.
Yeah, well, I've always been a proponent of wide. Some authors have been super successful with wide and have created, diversified distribution portfolios so that, it's okay if one retailer's sales bomb in a certain month. They're making it up somewhere else. The danger in exclusivity is that all your eggs are in one basket. And so there's a risk that if Amazon changes their algorithm overnight, you can wake up and your sales dry up. And then, of course, with KDP Select, what they decided to do is to decide which books would have authors to the good merchandising tools and which books would not. And, by reserving their special merchandising tools and special visibility tools to the exclusive crowd, they're basically making it impossible for the wide crowd to achieve fair visibility, a level playing field.
Because that's their goal. Their goal is to win and to put all of their competitors out of business. And so they put a lot of pressure on authors to go exclusive with them, not just with ebooks, but also with audiobooks, actually. So there's a lot of incentive to go exclusive with Audible. And if you go through the ACX program, I think you're required to be exclusive with Audible for 7 years. So as somebody who's standing up against Amazon, right? You weren't trying to be their nemesis, but you kind of become that. I saw that you're also helping indie authors, get their books out on Audible. On audio. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, a couple of years ago, we entered a partnership with Findaway. So Findaway is looking to create a strong alternative to the Audible ecosystem. It's also worth pointing out that about 2 years ago, something major happened. Prior to about 2 years ago, Audible had an exclusive at iTunes. They were the exclusive supplier of audiobooks. And then that exclusive ended. So what we're seeing now is that Apple is making a go at building their audiobook sales, building a thriving ecosystem outside of Audible. Findaway is one of their partners in that, and we're pleased to work with Findaway to make it easy for our authors to produce audiobooks.
Because in general, in business, it's never a good idea when one company controls all of a market, right? The free market works best when there's competition keeping the companies honest. And
yes.
And when you don't have that, companies are tempted to take more of the pie and also to provide worse and worse of service. Part of the reason why electricity boomed so quickly in the early 20th century was that the gas companies that had been providing a lot of the things that you were then getting electricity for, like heat, they had monopolies, and they treated their customers so terribly that people were desperate for anything, even this expensive, dangerous technology called electricity, if it would just set them free from the evil gas companies. It's like there is nothing new under the sun. The same thing happens with internet companies, right? People are so desperate for Google Fiber because their cable company treats them so terribly. And then the same risk happens with Amazon, because as an author, as a publisher, Amazon doesn't care about you. They only care about their customer, and they will put as much of a squeeze on you as possible to give their end customer, which is the reader, a better experience and a lower price. And so just realize that they're not aligned with you necessarily. Hopefully you're wanting to give the reader a good experience, but you're also hoping to make a living doing what you're doing. And Amazon doesn't care if you make a living. They just care if the reader is happy.
And isn't that unfortunate? Because it is possible to care for the writer and care for the customer and also run a profitable business.
It's true. And I will say, it's not that Amazon doesn't do anything for authors. They give millions and millions of dollars to authors. And I know a lot of indie authors who are exclusive to Amazon, and they're making small fortunes. So it's not like they're putting the squeeze in every way. And this is why it's such a vibrant debate, because the people who are exclusive are like, hey, I'm making really good money. And the people who are wide are like, yeah, but what if, Amazon were to cut that off tomorrow? That could be really dangerous.
Well, see, here's the thing about Amazon's business model. Their business model is predicated upon commoditizing everything that they sell. They're looking for the products that they sell to be undifferentiated from one another. And as a writer, you don't want your book to be a commodity. And I know a lot of writers think, well, there's no way that my book could be a commodity because it's my original creation from my imagination. But there is an aspect of books that can be commoditized, and that's reading pleasure. Reading enjoyment and knowledge learned from reading. And if you can gather a large enough catalog of high-quality books that satisfy that ability to deliver pleasure and deliver knowledge, then you can commoditize that. And that's what they're doing. And unlike manufacturers of mousetraps, writers can't outsource their work to China or India. It's just you. And what we see now, especially with Kindle Unlimited, which is powered by authors who enrolled in KDP Select, is that they're actually dumping books on the market at below market cost, below production cost. And that is a dangerous omen for the future of publishing, for the future of indie publishing, and the future profitability of publishing, when you've got a single retailer trying to take the profit out of publishing.
Which is why a lot of traditionally published companies are not fighting for very much of the ebook pie. Their total revenue mostly comes from paper books, and they often price their ebooks quite high to keep those paper books appealing to readers, because they're afraid of Amazon having that power. Now, we talked about going wide in the sense of being on Kobo and Nook and the other bookstores, but there's an even wider wide than that, which is allowing your ebook to be given away by libraries. So selling your ebook to libraries. What are your thoughts on indie authors having their ebook available through local library systems around the country?
We love libraries. I love libraries. We've been big proponents for libraries and library ebooks, and we were the first to open up Overdrive, which is the large distributor of library ebooks. We were the first to open them up to self-published ebooks. We've opened up other library platforms, Access 360, Cloud Library, Odeo. When you publish a book at Smashwords, we give you the ability to distribute it to these libraries, and you can even set custom pricing for the libraries. If you want to charge the library less, you can, or if you want to charge them more, you can.
All right, and I agree. I think that there's a lot of advantages to having your books available at libraries because libraries pay a lot of money for your ebooks. They pay top dollar typically, and it gets you in front of more readers. Because one of the, like, as you're talking about differentiating yourself, the way you differentiate yourself ultimately is by building a strong brand, so that people want specifically a your name book and not a just any kind of book in your genre. And part of the way that you do that is by getting buzz about your book. And one way to help drive buzz is by having library readers also reading your book.
Yes, libraries are engines of discovery. Great opportunity for readers, library patrons, to discover writers that they've never heard of before. They can check the book out risk-free, and often library patrons will discover their new favorite author from the library and then go on to purchase the books at retail.
And I'll say we did that. The most recent book we checked out of the library, we kept renewing it at the library, and we finally broke down and just bought it and bought a copy because we were tired of renewing it and stressing about it. But I do want to talk about the publishing process, because a lot of people listening are on the fence, not between wide and indie, but they're on the fence between indie and traditional. And they're curious about what that process looks like, of how do you take that Word document and turn it into an ebook that someone could buy on Amazon or on Kobo. So what does that process look like?
Well, we can talk about the process at Smashwords. So at Smashwords, you come to Smashwords and all you need is a Microsoft Word document formatted to the specifications of the Smashwords Style Guide. The Smashwords Style Guide is a free ebook that you can download that teaches you professional best practices for designing and formatting your ebook. So you upload your Microsoft Word document to Smashwords. Our system automatically converts it into multiple ebook file types. So EPUB, Mobi for Kindle, PDF, and then some other less important types.
And what are some of the elements of a good ebook?
In terms of the structure of the ebook?
Yeah. So what would separate an ebook that is going to do well from an ebook where people immediately are like, oh, this doesn't look like a high quality ebook? Because we've all had that experience of looking at an ebook and like, this just feels self-published. Whereas there's a lot of other ebooks that readers couldn't tell. They don't know who the publisher is, and they may have no idea that it's an independent book.
Well, I think design is really important for your ebook. You know, there is this idea that you just, an ebook is just text. Well, it's not. There's a lot of opportunity to add attractive design elements to your self-published ebook so that your book becomes more accessible, more desirable, and more enjoyable to your readers. One thing that I would recommend that's really important is to add navigation to your ebook. This is something you can't do with print. Although you can have a table of contents in your print book, you still have to manually turn the pages. But with an ebook, you can have a digital table of contents with hyperlinks so that the reader can click a link and instantly be transported to the exact location in the book. And if you're writing nonfiction, you can also create a sophisticated index so that you can link back into the book from your index. All this is possible, by following the Smashwords Style Guide.
That's right. And one tool I like if you're using Mac is the software Vellum, which is a beautiful software that helps you do this better than Word. Although one advantage of doing Word and following your style guide is that you'll learn how to use Word better. Because I find a lot of people, they only use about 3 of Word's features. They use the spell check, they use the bold, and they use the font size. And that's really a poor way to use Word. And really, you shouldn't be changing the font size manually on a word-by-word basis. You should be using the styles. And I imagine, I haven't gone through your style guide, but I imagine you're kind of training people on Word best practices that will help you in the rest of your writing, even non-book writing.
Yes, definitely. For the first 15 years of my prior career, I used Microsoft Word, and I was like you just said. I would bold, italics, everything was manually applied. I didn't know what styles were. Microsoft Word is a multi-headed hydra. It's a beast. And it takes there's a learning curve involved in getting to know how to use it. And so when I sat down to write the Smashwords Style Guide, for me, it was like I was your typical writer. I was familiar with Word, but I didn't really know how to use it. And so I learned along with everyone else, and I put it all into the Style Guide in simple step-by-step order with lots of pictures. And yeah, people tell me that it really helps them learn how to use Word in ways that they never realized before. You mentioned Vellum. I think Vellum is another excellent tool. Vellum will allow you to add design elements to your book that are not easy to do in Word. I think Word is good if you want a do-it-yourself tool. It's generally free if you already own it. But Vellum is a great tool as well if you want to add more sophisticated elements into the book.
And we'll have links to both Vellum and the Smashwords Style Guide in the show notes if you want to check out either of those. And you don't have to be a Smashwords user to read the Style Guide. So if you're just wanting to become better at Microsoft Word, which will do yourself a favor for the rest of your life because you can never fully escape Word. I know a lot of authors who draft their books in Scrivener, and then they style their books in Vellum, but they still have to interact with their books in Word while they're interacting with their editors because the editors, most of them anyway, refuse to use anything other than Word to do their editing. So you never fully escape Word. I know there's some editors who will use Google Docs or something else. In fact, I found one for my book. But in general, you never fully escape Microsoft Word.
There's still people out there trying to use Word Perfect.
Is that still a thing? This is
Apparently
2020.
it is. I know, it's 2020.
I don't even know if they still make that. So other than trying to use Word Perfect, which I'll put down as the first mistake authors make when publishing their book. Yes, please don't. Yeah, what are some other mistakes that authors make when they're trying to turn their book into an ebook?
Well, if we're talking about formatting, one thing that's really important to understand about ebooks is that ebooks work best as a reflowable format. So what is reflowability? Reflowability allows the words on the screen to shapeshift based on the size of the screen and also the reader's preferences for font size. So that's the magic of reflowability. And a mistake that a lot of first-time authors make is that they try to make the reflowable ebook look just like their print book. But it's important to understand that your print book is a fixed format. With print, your print designer can determine the font size, the font style, the kerning, the line spacing, everything is all controlled according to best practices. But with reflowable ebooks, which is what you want to design as an indie author, you want to give up some of your control over the design elements so that you can hand that control to the reader by allowing the reader to choose their own font size, their own font color, their own background color, their own line spacing. You're actually offering the reader a book that's more enjoyable to them.
And this is really important because one of the biggest groups that use ebooks are elderly people who are needing large print. So there's this myth that the kids are reading ebooks, and that's not true. If you look at the numbers, teenagers of all the ages are the least likely to read ebooks because they don't have an $80 ebook reader. And if they have $80, they're not spending it on a Kindle or a Kobo. They're going to spend it on something else. Whereas as people get older, and they're needing that larger print. Most books don't have a large print size, but if your book is reflowable, and all the traditionally published books are, then you just crank up that print size on your Kindle, and suddenly every book is a large print book. And in many ways, ebooks are more like web pages, because a lot of web pages operate this way. In fact, the technology behind ebooks is actually the same technology behind web pages, are really similar. It uses HTML markup, which the nerd in me really likes. I realize HTML makes people break out in hives, and that's why we recommend Vellum, where you don't have to learn HTML. But when I was a kid, we hand-coded our ebooks, and we enjoyed it. We scribbled them on stone tablets.
Yes.
So what are some trends that you're noticing in ebook publishing?
Well, at the end of every year, I do a Smashwords year in review, and then I do a publishing predictions post. And it's fair to say that in recent years, my posts have gotten a little bit darker. What we've seen here, so big trends that we're seeing, Amazon has really won the first decade of ebook publishing. They have pretty much neutered most of their competitors. They've captured 70, 80% of the market share. And the other retailers have had severe difficulty competing against them. So we've seen this massive consolidation in terms of where the readers are. This consolidation consolidation at a single sales outlet has changed the behavior of authors. Now, if you spend any amount of time with authors, or you go to writers' conferences, as I know you do and I do, often, invariably, the conversation turns to, how do I please Amazon's algorithms? What do I need to do to increase the visibility of my book at Amazon? How do I take advantage of KDP Select? How do I advertise at Amazon? How do I advertise in other places so that I can sell more books at Amazon? And often these questions that authors are asking are similar to a moth saying, how can I fly faster to the flame?
So what about it in terms of like genres? What kinds of books do you see doing well? What have been some of the hot trends in 2019, 2020?
Well, every year, genre fiction across all the different categories performs well as ebooks. We see romance across all the categories doing well in ebooks. I think romance really captured the lion's share of the ebook market. We've seen traditional publishers reducing their romance publishing, publishing fewer books, lower advances. So we're seeing publishers abandon that market, cede it to the indie authors. I think what we're seeing in romance, we're going to start seeing in other genre fiction categories. It's very difficult for traditional publishers to compete against indie authors.
And there's some really good reasons for this, because I know some of you are like, what? That's not true. And it's like, well, part of what drives book reading, especially genre book reading, are trends. And trends can emerge in places other than writing, right? A certain kind of movie is really popular, or a certain event happens. And, like, I wouldn't be surprised if disease outbreak type books are more popular in 2020 because of all the fear about the coronavirus, right? Your pandemic book is suddenly, a hot topic. Maybe, right? But events in the news can drive trends. And there is no way for a traditional publisher to respond fast enough, right, to get an outbreak pandemic book out in 2020 while the coronavirus is still a thing that's in the news, right? Chances are China's going to get this thing, hammered down eventually, and we'll quarantine enough people and the coronavirus will go away. It could be wrong. It's hard to predict the future. It could be that it's the next Black Death and all the fear mongers are true. I personally don't think that that's going to happen, but you never know. But the reality is it's very unlikely for you to turn around a book fast enough, whereas an indie author could write a book in 2 or 3 months. Sometimes some indie authors are able to write their book in a month. They're able to go through Smashwords in, what's the process, a week, start to finish, to get their book on Amazon?
It's a matter of hours from the time that you upload your book to the time it can appear listed at the major retailers. We only distribute a small number of books to Amazon. Most of our distribution goes to Apple, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and the public libraries. But you're totally right, Thomas. Indie authors have the ability to react faster to market conditions. They have the ability to listen to their readers. And if there's a new trend, they can jump on it very quickly, whereas traditional publishers have a lead time that can run up to 1.5 years.
That's right. And for most books, that's not a big deal, right? If you're writing into a solidly established genre and you have a solidly established brand, a 1.5 year lead time is fine. But all of that kind of responding to micro trends, they give up for the most part, and which is unfortunate because it's not true. And I know we have traditional publishing executives and people who work in the traditional publishing space. And I'll just give you one hint. If you want to be more agile, study agile project management from the software world. They have done a really good job at creating a system, a project management methodology that allows you to be far more reactive to a changing environment, because it's a similar challenge in software, right? It takes a long time to write software. The internet's constantly changing, and yet they found a system that works. They adapted it from lean manufacturing principles in Toyota, and I would love to help your company, if you're a publisher, go through an agile transformation. I've helped several companies do this in various industries, and it is the future. And the first publishing company to fully adopt agile, I think, is going to have a huge advantage, especially in genre fiction.
Well, Thomas, I was going to add, one thing that we're talking about here is writing to the market. And I would caution your listeners, most writers probably should not be writing to the market. It's really tough to write to the market. In order for a book to be successful as an ebook, in order for it to generate word of mouth and sell, your book needs to be super awesome. It needs to take the reader to extreme heights of enjoyment and pleasure. And often that's only possible if you're writing what you love. And I advise writers, unless they're the fraction of 1% that can write anything, I think most writers should focus on writing what they love, because the publishing journey is going to be fraught with speed bumps and obstacles. And often writers are going to be confronted with more reasons to quit than to carry on. But if you're writing for the passion, if you're writing because your soul is nourished by every word that you write, then you're the writer that's going to continue writing when all the fast money authors have quit.
Yeah, so we're almost out of time, but do you have any final tips or encouragement for us?
Believe in yourself. You have something important to share with the world. And it's a wonderful time. You can begin writing a book today and with 100% assurance know that one way or another, that book is going to see the light of day. It's going to touch readers. That's really exciting. So believe in yourself, honor your readers, understand that as a self-published author, you need to act and think like a professional publisher. And if you do that, if you honor professional publishing best practices, then your odds of satisfying readers and building a lasting, robust career increase.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark. We've been talking with Mark Coker of Smashwords. We'll have links if you want to find out more about Smashwords. You can find that at smashwords.com. He also has a podcast, the Smart Author Podcast. So if you're looking for more indie publishing podcasts to listen to, I encourage you to check that out. We'll also have links to the Smashwords Style Guide and, of course, Vellum, which got a whole bunch of free advertising on our podcast today. And I will point out this one thing about Vellum is that it's Mac only. So you have to have ascended to Macintosh world in order to use Vellum. In fact, I know indie authors who bought a Mac just to use Vellum. That's how popular and powerful Vellum is, but it will not run on your PC. So just a heads up on that. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us today on the Christian Publishing Show.
Thanks, Thomas. My pleasure.
Thank you for listening to the Christian Publishing Show. For more information and to get episodes delivered to your phone automatically, visit christianpublishingshow.com.